morning settled gently over Bethany Grove. The town itself was only beginning to stir. A truck passed slowly along the main road, its tires humming against the pavement before disappearing between rows of trees. The church steeple caught the early light, and the windows of the general store glowed faintly, where Frank Mayer had already begun his day. Just beyond the edge of town, where the houses gave way to open fields, the small white schoolhouse stood beside the road. It was not far from the center of Bethany Grove. A person could walk there in 10 minutes if they kept a steady pace. Most of the children did exactly that each morning, their voices carrying ahead of them as they came up the road together. Inside the schoolhouse, the room was warm and bright. Tall windows along one wall let in the clear morning sunlight. The light fell across rows of wooden desks and the polished boards of the floor, catching faint swirls of chalk dust in the air. At the front of the room stood a wide chalkboard. Angela Whittaker wrote carefully across it, the chalk moving in a steady line beneath her hand. Numbers appeared one after another. When she finished the last one, she stepped back and looked over her shoulder at the class. "All right," she said, setting the chalk on the narrow ledge. "Let's see who remembers how we worked these yesterday." Several hands rose immediately. The room held children of several ages. The older students sat near the front, their books already open and pencils ready. The younger ones shifted a little in their seats, still learning the rhythm of the lessons. Angela moved easily among them. She paused beside one boy, whose pencil pressed heavily against the paper as he tried to keep his numbers straight. "Not so hard," she said gently. "You'll tear the page." The boy loosened his grip a little and tried again. "That's better." Across the room, a pair of younger girls whispered over a reader, sounding out the words together under their breath. Angela crossed to them and rested a hand lightly on the edge of the desk. "Let's hear it." One of the girls straightened and began again, her voice careful but determined as she worked through the sentence. Angela listened patiently. When the girl finished, Angela nodded with quiet approval. "Well done." Teaching several grades in one room required a certain kind of balance. While the older students worked through arithmetic, the younger children practiced reading. When the younger group finished, Angela shifted her attention again. The room moved in a gentle rhythm of learning. Outside the windows, the road ran past the schoolhouse toward town. A pair of boys had arrived late and now hurried up the steps, their boots thumping lightly across the wooden porch before the door opened and closed again. Angela glanced toward them briefly, but said nothing. The boys slipped into their seats with the quick efficiency of students who had learned not to draw attention. Angela turned back toward the chalkboard. "Now," she said, tapping the first problem lightly with the chalk. "Who would like to try this one?" A tall boy in the front row raised his hand. Angela nodded. "Go ahead, Samuel." Samuel stood, and worked carefully through the numbers, while the others followed along on their papers. Angela watched quietly, her arms folded loosely as she leaned against the edge of the desk. When Samuel finished, she looked over the answer and nodded. "That's correct." A few of the students tapped their pencils against their desks in quiet approval. Angela smiled faintly and reached again for the chalk. "All right," she said, writing the next problem beside the first. "Let's see if the rest of you can keep up with Samuel." The students bent back over their papers. For a few minutes, the only sounds in the room were the soft scratch of pencils and the occasional rustle of pages turning. Angela moved slowly between the desks again, offering quiet corrections or encouragement where it was needed. Near the back of the room, a small hand lifted uncertainly into the air. Angela turned. "Yes, Mary." Mary hesitated for a moment, glancing briefly at the other students before speaking. "Miss Angela." "Yes." Mary's feet swung slightly beneath her desk. "Are you going to marry Michael Mayer someday?" For half a heartbeat, the room went still. Then a ripple of laughter moved through the older students. Angela felt the warmth rise quickly to her cheeks. She pressed her lips together, trying not to smile too much. "Well," she said, reaching for the chalk again, "that isn't part of today's arithmetic lesson." The laughter faded as the students returned their attention to the chalkboard. Angela wrote another problem and stepped back again. "Now," she said calmly, tapping the board, "who can solve this one?" Hands rose again. The lesson continued. Soon the room filled once more with the quiet sounds of learning as pencils moved across paper and students worked through their sums. Angela moved among them as she always did, steady and patient, guiding one child and then another. Outside, the road beside the schoolhouse lay quiet beneath the brightening morning sky. In Bethany Grove, the day had only just begun. By the time the schoolhouse bell rang at the end of the day, the sun had climbed high, and the warmth of afternoon had settled gently over Bethany Grove. The children poured out of the schoolhouse door in a burst of laughter and movement. Books were tucked under arms, jackets slung over shoulders, and a dozen voices filled the air at once as they scattered toward the road. Some turned toward town, others headed across the fields toward nearby farms. Angela stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them go the way she did every afternoon. "Don't forget your reading for tomorrow," she called after them. A few voices answered back in cheerful agreement. Then the road grew quiet again. Angela stepped back inside. The schoolroom had changed quickly once the students were gone. The lively murmur of lessons had disappeared, leaving behind the soft creak of the building settling in the afternoon heat. She moved slowly between the desks, straightening papers and stacking a few books that had been left open. A pencil rolled across one desk and dropped to the floor. Angela picked it up and placed it neatly beside the notebook where it belonged. At the front of the room, she erased the chalkboard, the soft rasp of the eraser filling the empty space. White dust drifted lightly through the sunlight streaming in from the windows. When the board was clean again, she set the eraser down and brushed the chalk from her hands. The room looked ready for morning. Angela gathered her satchel from the desk and stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind her. The air carried the scent of warm grass and distant fields. From here, the road curved gently toward town, disappearing briefly between two stands of trees before opening again onto the main street. Angela started down the road at an easy pace. It was a walk she had made nearly every day for years. When she was younger, she had walked it as a student. Now she walked it as the teacher. The distance was short enough that the town always felt close. As she neared Bethany Grove, the quiet countryside gave way to the slow, familiar rhythm of town life. A pickup truck stood parked outside the general store. Across the street, someone had propped open the door of the barber shop to let the afternoon breeze move through. Angela continued another block until she reached the small brick building that housed both the pharmacy and the post office. A wooden sign above the door read, Whitaker Pharmacy and Post. Angela pushed the door open. A small bell above the frame chimed softly as she stepped inside. The shop smelled faintly of clean paper and medicinal herbs. Behind the counter, her father stood sorting a small stack of envelopes, while a row of glass bottles lined the shelves behind him. He glanced up when the bell rang. "Well now," he said with a smile. "School must be finished for the day." Angela set her satchel on the counter. "It is." Her mother sat at a small desk near the window. A ledger opened before her as she carefully entered numbers in neat lines. Without looking up, she said, "How were the children today?" "Mostly attentive," Angela said. "Mostly," her father repeated with a quiet chuckle. Angela leaned lightly against the counter. The shop was peaceful this time of afternoon. The morning rush had passed, and the evening customers had not yet begun to arrive. Her father finished sorting the letters and slid them neatly into the wooden cubbies behind the counter. "How many students are you up to now?" he asked. 23, Angela said. "If the Morgan boys keep coming." Her father nodded thoughtfully. "That's a full room." "They're good boys," Angela said. "Just energetic." Her mother finally looked up from the ledger. "That's a polite word for it." Angela laughed softly. Outside the front window, a man walked past carrying a paper sack from the store. A truck rolled slowly down the street toward the edge of town. Angela rested her hands on the counter. "Is it quiet today?" she asked. "For the moment," her father said. He reached for another small stack of mail. "Though it won't stay that way once people start thinking about supper." Angela watched him for a moment as he worked. The steady rhythm of the shop was something she had grown up with. The sound of envelopes sliding into their slots. The soft scratch of her mother's pen moving across the ledger pages. It was the kind of place where people stopped not only for medicine or mail, but often just to talk for a few minutes before moving on with their day. Angela picked up her satchel again. "I should stop by the store before I go home," she said. Her mother nodded. "Tell Jessica I'll see her at Bible study tomorrow." "I will." Angela moved toward the door. The bell chimed again as she stepped outside into the afternoon light. Down the street, the windows of the general store reflected the warm glow of the sun. Angela started toward it at an easy pace, her footsteps light along the wooden sidewalk. In Bethany Grove, the day moved forward quietly, one familiar moment after another. The bell above the door of the general store rang as Angela stepped inside. The sound was familiar in Bethany Grove. It marked nearly every arrival throughout the day, a small chime that echoed through the long room between shelves of goods and the wide wooden counter. The store smelled faintly of fresh coffee, burlap sacks, and polished wood. Tall shelves ran the length of the room, stocked with everything from canned goods and flour to tools, lantern wicks, and jars of preserves. Sunlight from the front windows spread across the floorboards and caught the glass jars lined neatly along one wall. Behind the counter stood Frank Mayer. He looked up from the small ledger he had been reviewing and smiled when he saw her. "Well now," he said warmly, closing the book. "If it isn't the school teacher." Angela returned the smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. Mayer." Frank rested his forearms comfortably on the counter. "Long day." "Not especially," Angela said, "though the Morgan boys nearly tested my patience this morning." Frank chuckled softly. "They have that effect on people." From the back room came the sound of a crate sliding across the floor. A moment later, Michael Mayer stepped through the doorway, carrying a wooden box filled with canned goods. He set it carefully on the counter before noticing Angela standing there. His expression shifted instantly into a quiet smile. "Well," he said, brushing his hands together lightly, "if it is Miss Whittaker." Angela felt that familiar warmth rise in her chest the way it always did when Michael looked at her that way. "Good afternoon," she said. Michael lifted the crate again and began placing the cans neatly along one of the shelves. "How were the students today?" he asked. "They survived arithmetic," Angela said, "which I consider a success." Frank laughed quietly behind the counter. Michael finished stacking the last can and stepped back to examine the row. "That's encouraging," he said. "Arithmetic defeated me more than once when I was sitting in those desks." Angela tilted her head slightly. "I seem to remember you doing quite well." Michael shrugged modestly. "That's because you helped me." Frank watched the exchange with a knowing sort of amusement, but said nothing. A customer entered behind Angela, and the bell above the door chimed again. Frank turned his attention back to the counter. Michael moved toward the back again, returning a moment later with another crate. Angela wandered slowly along the nearest aisle, glancing at the shelves as she often did when she stopped by. The store was one of the busiest places in town. People came through constantly throughout the day. Farmers stopping for supplies, mothers picking up flour or sugar, children sent in with small lists written carefully on scraps of paper. Michael set the crate down and opened it. Angela noticed a folded piece of paper lying on the counter nearby. Numbers had been written across it in neat columns. She glanced toward Michael. "Are you doing accounts now too?" she asked. Michael followed her gaze and picked up the paper. "Oh," he said lightly, "just working something out." Angela studied him for a moment. "You've been doing that a lot lately." Michael smiled slightly, but didn't answer right away. Frank looked up briefly from helping a customer across the counter. His eyes moved from Michael to the paper and back again, but he said nothing. Michael folded the paper once and slipped it into his pocket. "Just thinking about a few things," he said. Angela accepted the answer, though she sensed there was more behind it. Before she could ask another question, the bell above the door chimed again. This time, Jessica Mayer stepped inside, brushing a loose strand of hair back from her face as she crossed the floor. She stopped when she saw Angela. "Well, look at that," Jessica said with a grin. "The whole town must be here today." Angela laughed. "Not quite." Jessica set a small basket on the counter. "Mother asked me to bring these over," she said, nodding toward the contents. "Fresh rolls." Frank lifted the cloth covering the basket and nodded approvingly. She always did know how to keep this store running properly. Jessica leaned against the counter and glanced between Angela and Michael. "So," she said casually, "how was the schoolhouse today?" Angela answered, while Michael returned to stacking goods along the shelf. The easy conversation filled the store again. Outside the window, the afternoon sun drifted slowly toward evening. Inside the general store, the quiet rhythm of Bethany Grove carried on, as it always had. The afternoon sun stretched warm across the front of the general store as Angela stepped onto the wooden boardwalk. Behind her, the door closed with a soft thud, and the bell inside gave one last soft chime. For a moment, she paused near the railing, adjusting the strap of her satchel, while the quiet rhythm of Bethany Grove carried on around her. Across the street, the barber shop door stood open, and the faint sound of a radio drifted into the street. A truck rolled slowly past the church before turning toward the road leading out of town. Angela rested her hands along the railing. The store door opened again. Jessica stepped out and pulled it closed behind her. "There you are," she said. Angela smiled. "Were you looking for me?" Jessica leaned comfortably against one of the wooden posts. "I thought I might catch you before you disappeared." They stood quietly for a moment, watching two boys race each other down the street toward the park. Then Jessica said casually, "Austin was in the store earlier." Angela turned slightly, though Jessica nodded. "He stayed longer than usual." "What was he doing?" Jessica smiled faintly. "Talking," That doesn't sound unusual. Jessica shook her head. Not the talking part, the subject. Angela waited. Jessica crossed her arms loosely. He's been talking about getting married. Angela blinked. To who? Jessica laughed softly. He hasn't proposed yet. Angela relaxed a little. So he's just thinking about it. Jessica nodded. Exactly. She paused, glancing back through the store window. Inside, Michael moved steadily along the shelves, stacking goods. Jessica looked back at Angela. Men take their time with things like that, she said. Angela gave a small smile. Some more than others. Jessica studied her friend's face for a moment. You're starting to wonder, aren't you? Angela hesitated. Maybe a little. Jessica reached out and nudged Angela's arm lightly. Angela, my brother has been half in love with you since we were children. Angela laughed quietly. That's a bold claim. It's the truth. Jessica nodded toward the store window. You've seen the way he looks at you. Angela glanced inside again. Michael was speaking with her father near the counter, lifting a crate together. Jessica continued gently. Michael doesn't rush things, she said. You know that. Angela nodded. He never has. Jessica leaned back against the railing. When he finally decides something, she added, he doesn't turn back from it either. Angela considered that. Jessica smiled reassuringly. If he hasn't asked yet, it's not because he doesn't want to marry you. Angela looked at her. Jessica shrugged lightly. It's because he's trying to figure out how to do it right. Angela felt the tension in her shoulders ease just a little. Jessica tilted her head toward the store. He's been carrying those numbers around again, she said. Angela nodded. I noticed. Jessica gave a thoughtful hum. That boy is planning something. Angela folded her arms loosely along the railing. What kind of something? Jessica shook her head. I don't know yet. She slipped her arm casually through Angela. But whatever it is, she said with quiet confidence, I'd bet my last dollar it has something to do with you. Angela smiled despite herself. Jessica tugged her gently down the boardwalk. Come on, she said. Where are we going? Home. Angela allowed herself one last glance through the store window. Michael had returned to stacking goods along the shelf, working with the same steady focus he always had. Jessica guided her down the boardwalk beside her. The two of them walked side by side toward home. As the warm afternoon settled quietly over Bethany Grove, the late afternoon light had begun to soften by the time Michael stepped out of the general store. Behind him, the door closed and the bell above it chimed quietly. The street had grown calmer. A truck rolled slowly past the church before turning toward the road leading out of town. Somewhere down the block, a screen door shut, and voices drifted faintly from a nearby yard. Michael walked along the boardwalk and turned toward the gravel lot beside the feed shed near the edge of town. A pickup truck sat parked there, dust still clinging to the tires. Todd leaned against the tailgate, turning a wrench slowly in his hands. He looked up as Michael approached. "Thought you might not make it out today," Todd said. Michael smiled faintly. "The store kept me busy." Todd tossed the wrench into the bed of the truck. "That happens when your father runs the only store in town." Michael leaned beside him against the tailgate. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Beyond the road, the fields stretched wide and quiet beneath the late afternoon sky.